All right, so this is my first video about drawing labs since I had COVID, and never really thought that COVID would affect anything to do with TRT for me. So I was going to make this video last week, and I decided to hold off until I had all the answers from my physician. I finally got them this morning, so I decided to go ahead and put this in video form so you guys kind of had an idea of how that worked. So I went and had an annual physical for the department I work for on October 15th. And they do a pretty extensive blood draw anyways for that physical. So my urologist had sent me a script to have the additional drawn of testosterone, total testosterone, free testosterone, estradiol. All right, everything else, he wanted a PSA. They were already doing that, and he wanted a CBC, which they were already doing for my physical anyways, so it was pretty easy. I just took the script with me. They drew everything all at one time, got all the answers, right? So last week, I go to my physician, my urologist, for my TRT stuff, every 6-month checkup. And I go in there, and generally, as I've told you guys before, my testosterone level on the morning I give myself an injection is around 300. For the most part, 300. That's my total testosterone. Most of the time, my free testosterone rests somewhere in the area of about 30, okay? So I go, and the day I scheduled my physical for was the day that I would be giving myself a shot to make sure that we were on an even keel. And I go in there, and my urologist is like, hey, did you look at your numbers? And I had, and he was pretty concerned that my total testosterone was 185. And he was also pretty concerned that my free testosterone was 18. Okay, and the only thing that's changing any of this is the fact that in between my last 6-month checkup and this 6-month checkup, I've had COVID. Like, everything else is pretty consistent. I mean, consistent. Like, my diet's pretty on track. You know, my exercise program is pretty on track. The only thing that's changed is the fact that I've had COVID. And so, he's like, you know, those numbers are pretty low. Well, in my physical, we pull a lot of values that we don't normally pull in a CBC, which wouldn't be pulled in the CBC. We pull a lot of blood values that we don't normally get pulled when I do my urologist check. And so one of the values that we pull is called absolute eosinophils. And the upper range, the top range of an absolute eosinophil is 500. And my number was 683. And so the urologist explained to me that a really heightened number, which he considered this to be, you know, a moderately high number for absolute eosinophils, would be an indication of an inflammation condition. So the other thing that we don't normally have when I go do my urologist checkup is that the physician who did my annual physical just decided to send the entire physical record over to my urologist. So, including a chest x-ray. And so, the urologist looks at chest x-ray and he's like, you know, I can see the COVID in your lungs. Like, I can see the outline of all the structures in your lungs, right? You got 3 lobes in your right lung, 2 lobes in your left lung. You can clearly see all the structures, and you could clearly see infiltrates from the COVID in there. And he said, there's this one little thing, and he showed me, there's this one little thing that concerns me right here, which for me, could potentially be a clot. You know, not a clot that's causing you shortness of breath, which blood clots would do if they were severe enough in the right place, but potentially a clot. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. The other thing is, the hematocrit's up. And so, you know, I think my hematocrit was 53. And my red blood cells were up. Now, we've talked about, you know, increased hematocrit and what that could do for you long term. And so, again, I'm super appreciative of the fact that I see a urologist who's really conservative, who wants to stay on top of the numbers, wants to be conservative, and wants to see what's going on. So he said, you know, I don't feel really good about letting you just, you know, go on the way we've been going with the fact that, you know, there's potentially a clot, and, you know, your hematocrit's up, and I explained to him, you know, haven't been able to give blood. And normally that's what I've talked to you guys before, is I generally give blood, and that's how I deal with hematocrit, red blood cell issue as far as TRT goes. And so I haven't been able to give blood. And he said, well, you know, that could be something. He said, but the increased total eosinophil would be an indication of inflammation condition, which could be accounted for by what I'm seeing in your lungs. Your body could be inflamed, trying to deal with, you know, the garbage that it's trying to process out of your lungs. He said, but the potential of a clot really concerns me, because as we've talked about, you know, on TRT, you can manufacture an increase in red blood cells that increases your hematocrit, but having an increase in the production of red blood cells on top of a potential clotting condition would be an issue. Now, you know, I'm completely upfront with my doctor, so I told him during this period of time, I said about 2 weeks after I had COVID, one evening I was up doing some work, and I had an issue where I couldn't move my right arm, I couldn't move my right leg for about 7 minutes or so. And I was actually calling for my wife. She was asleep. She slept through the whole thing. The dogs come rushing in like, what's up? And I was like, you know, I can't move. And slowly, you know, I'm sitting there with my brain, like telling my arm to move, you know, like, let's do something. And slowly, you know, that condition wears off, which generally would be considered like a transient ischemic accident, TIA. And, you know, it resolved itself. I went in, I told my wife when I was getting into bed, I said, hey, if I wake up dead in the morning, I had a stroke. That's what the deal is, because it had resolved itself. I really didn't feel like going to the ER at that point in time was going to be any issue. I did take my blood pressure. My blood pressure wasn't up. But again, what's one of the issues that can happen with COVID? You can throw clots as a byproduct of having COVID. So I explained this to him, and he was very concerned with that. And then together with that information and what he saw on the x-ray, he said, listen, he said, this is what I want to do. I want to send your blood work to a hematologist. I want to send your chest x-ray to a radiologist. Both of them are friends of mine. They can probably look at it pretty quick. Give us an idea whether or not keeping you on TRT is a good idea, considering the increase in red blood cells and the increase in hematocrit and, you know, everything that comes along with TRT. To be honest with you, I was not happy. You know, I know what being on TRT feels like, and I'm pro TRT. You guys know that. And I did a lot of soul searching between that time and today over, you know, whether or not, if he said, hey, I don't feel comfortable keeping you on this, if I would try to go find another physician who would put me back on it, or what the deal would be. But thankfully, this morning, you know, I got the lowdown. Said that they don't believe what was in my chest was a clot. He was still somewhat concerned about the incident where I couldn't move my right arm or right leg, and he said if it happened again, that, you know, I need to immediately go to the emergency room. Which, I mean, I knew that at the point in time it happened. I knew I should have gone, but, you know, I'm hard-headed as the next guy. But, you know, he felt like we could continue on with TRT exactly where we were, that I needed to go get blood, you know, that kind of thing. Like, hey, check. He also was like, hey man, you gained a few pounds, which I have. I got really used to eating terrible when I had COVID. And you know, I have eaten a good diet, but to be quite honest with you, I've supplemented it with snacks, and I have gained a few pounds. He was like, you need to do more cardio. Blood pressure, pulse rate was great, but you need to do that. But this is one of the reasons why I tell people all the time to have your TRT program monitored by a physician who's conservative. Because even though I was dreading the possibility of him saying, you know, no, and even though my mind was going to that place where if he says we're not going to do this anymore, I might just go find another doctor, you know, I don't know that that's what I would have actually done. But in the aftermath, I am thankful that this guy didn't just throw the x-ray to the side, discount all of it, say we're good, not pay me any attention, and just keep driving forward. And you know, it's a promotion for dealing with a physician who is conservative. The other thing I'll say is my estradiol was right on point, right? 32 is what my estradiol was. So again, guys, you know, his explanation for the low TRT numbers, the low total testosterone, and the low free testosterone is my body is still in a state of repair from COVID, and we're talking like a month and a half post-COVID. It would be about a month from my last, deal with COVID till I had my blood drawn. Here we are a month and a half past, but my body is still in the healing process of COVID, and that extra testosterone is being absorbed up and used up in the process of trying to heal, which we talked about before. Testosterone helps heal the body. It helps with repair, regeneration. So to me, that made sense. The total eosinophil level would be there because of the body trying to deal with the inflammation of junk products still in my lungs that they're trying to process out. So I really appreciated him taking the time to not just go through it with me and explain to me why each number probably was the way it was. And again, it's practicing medicine. There's no steadfast rule for every single individual. But he said, "This is what I believe this means. This is what I believe this means. This is what I believe this means." And then ultimately at the end, to have the care to send these values off to other physicians just to get them to ring in and see what they thought. And again, like as much as I sit here on these videos and I talk about this stuff to you guys, there was that part of me that was so caught up in the whole, hey, I know how I feel when I'm on this, and if he says no, I might just go find me another guy, which would probably have not been the right decision, right? But when you get caught up in that moment, that's where you are. So I try to be honest with you guys about these things, and that's what happened to me with this last lab draw. But again, that's why I promote having a conservative physician who's going to oversee your program, who knows you, and is going to take the time to actually deal with you and not treat you as a number of a patient. So that's where we are with labs. First lab post-COVID. And he did say he wanted to see improvement at the next 6-month visit. So hopefully we'll be there. All right. So I'm Trick or Trauma. You guys have a good day.